Okay, the channel is live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Watching 100 Movies. I'm Christiana Ellis,
And I'm Mike Mateen.
and today we are reconvening after a little bit more of a break than we usually like, but that's just, it's this time of year, lots of stuff going on. So we had a plan, though. We had the two movies that we had decided to watch for the last time. That was Touch of Evil and Mutiny on the Bounty, the 1935 version. And I watched both of those, but at this point it was like over a month ago. And so I figure we can maybe sort of touch on them briefly, but then rather than try to spend the whole episode trying to remember what happened in those movies, we also have a new list, the New York Times's top 100 movies of the 21st century, that I think would be fun to talk through. And I'm telling you this because it's really, meta for the audience to know because you and I obviously discussed this already.
Yes, I figured as much. Um, yeah, I also watched both those movies.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I mean, we can touch on them briefly, but I think they're good movies.
Mm-hmm.
But I think also with everything going on this time of year, at least I didn't feel like super jacked up about like we need to talk about these.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Not that I didn't like watching them. It just didn't have the like, oh, I can't wait to talk about this. So
Yeah,
it just never really made it a priority to kind of connect on them with everything else going on.
I could see that. I could see that. There's a little bit of a sense of there's a lot going on right now, and this feels a little bit like going back to look at some older stuff that isn't necessarily like have immediate relevance, which is not to say that it has to, but
Mm.
it's just I think also maybe you and I would both be just more eager to talk about them if it was a little fresher, as opposed to us watching them and then still just letting a couple weeks go by. But in any case, chronologically, Mutiny on the Bounty would be first, and I think this was your selection from that list of things that we hadn't seen. Do you want to just jump in with a quick like summary of it and your thoughts?
Um, it was about a mutiny.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
What was the ship's called name again?
I'm gonna pull up just some quick notes. I mean, I do have notes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, it was, and we watched
It was the
the,
1935 Clark Charles Lawton and Clark
yep,
Gable version
yeah,
of Mutiny
yeah,
on the
the older
Bounty.
version,
There's
right? Yep.
been several
Yeah,
movies made
because
of this
there's
story.
a Marlon Brando version,
Mm-hmm.
and
I think there's like
um,
five or six of them. There's even,
I
I believe, a TV miniseries that was just based on just the trial when they get back.
that's right. I'm trying to find my actual notes.
Okay.
Or I could have pulled that up before.
Well, I
Yeah,
remember the basic summary enough to say that if you if you want me to jump in.
I did probably need a reason to actually
Okay.
get you
Sure.
know, um, yes, obviously it's the mutiny is on the boat called the Bounty.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's what is it? Commander Bly.
Yeah.
Um, so it's our main character is Commander Bly, who is runs it very old school, I guess, in a way, like runs the
Mm-hmm.
ship much like a tyrant, um, really trying to like push discipline. It has this very, you know, like almost like he's acting like how he expects,
Mm-hmm.
an officer of the British Navy to act, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we've got Fletcher,
Fletcher
Fletcher,
Christian, yeah.
Christian, who is his executive officer. And I think that's one of the interesting things about the way they tell this story is like obviously he is our shown as our hero, right? Because he's
Mm-hmm.
compassionate, he disapproves of his treatment, um, and he's also very charismatic, right? So he helps win over the audience,
Mm-hmm.
right, as well as the story. So basically, during the entire voyage, the kind of combat, verbal combat between Bly and Christian keeps growing until ultimately Christian just ultimately challenges him.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and they then land in Tahiti, I believe.
Yeah, I believe
Uh,
that's correct. Yeah.
yes, and that's where Bly ultimately ends up punishing Christian. Uh, this is kind of the weird part of this version of the movie,
Mm-hmm.
as I'm looking through my notes, is kind of all their time in Tahiti.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that goes on a lot longer.
I think that,
And
yeah, well, go ahead. I
oh,
have a
you
thought
can go
on
ahead
that.
as well. I feel like it goes on a very long time about them just
Yeah.
basically like living in Tahiti and starting and like
There's,
romancing the girls. Yeah.
yeah, I
Eh,
think part of what's going on there is actually something we've talked about before, but not in a while. With movies made in this time period, 1935, you know, what people had seen of other places in the world was much less than today. And so to some
That's a good
extent
call.
the travelogue elements of it, of what is it actually like there? We've already seen what it's like on the ship. We would want to know what it's like in Tahiti to understand why the sailors might want to stay there instead of going back, right? Or staying on the ship.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I had forgotten about that. And because it's been a while since I've watched a lot of these older movies. Like I do remember that like I think one of the best examples of when I kind of realized that when I was younger was Around the World in 80 Days.
Mhm.
I remember it being kind of this cool adventure movie when I was a kid, but then as I got older and was watching, I was like, this is kind of odd that they just have these like very stereotypical engagements with all these different places, but that's like exactly what the movie was about, right? Was
Mhm.
to like show you some highlights of like what these cultures were like.
Mhm.
Um, so anyway, I think that is what's going on, right? And so that whole piece goes just again to show that Tahiti is a place that they really like.
Mhm.
Then they leave Tahiti, and Bly ultimately, like through his discipline, does lead to the death of one of the crew members. And there's already been some talk of mutiny, and then
Mhm.
ultimately they have the mutiny, and Christian takes over and decides to take the ship back to Tahiti
Mhm.
because they liked it there. Um, but that's not beloved by all, which I think is one of the more interesting parts of this movie
Mhm.
is that it's not, I was gonna say it's not black and white. It is a black and white movie.
Yeah.
Um, while it's very clear that Bly is overbearing and too harsh and all this type of stuff, and that Christian is more of the hero and
Mhm.
doing the right thing, and he is a little bit reluctant on the mutiny, right? Like it's not like he's initially right for the mutiny and then everybody's following him and behind him. Like they're not all behind him either, right?
Well,
Like,
one of the
go
things
ahead.
that's important to understand is that while we might say that Christian has the moral high ground in the sense of wanting to defend his fellow sailor against unfair treatment, and it's not even just the harsh discipline, it's also that Bly is personally enriching himself at the cost of the crew.
That's
Right?
true.
Like
Yep.
he's like the purpose of the voyage is to get a bunch of these palm trees and then bring them back alive. But in order to bring back even more trees, he decides to cut the crew's water ration, like to the
Yes.
point where it's like dangerously low. And so stuff like that too. But the point just being, this is based on a true story,
Yes.
and the thing that it's important to understand is that it is like the idea of a mutiny is a very very serious crime in naval tradition at that time. And I mean, not that it's not now, but the point just being, while we might be on Mr. Christian's side from a moral standpoint of standing up to a tyrant, he's clearly in the wrong legally.
Right.
there is no provision that says, well, if the
If he's a
captain is
jerk.
bad enough, you can remove him from command. That's not allowed. And so basically, all of the sailors that were participating in the mutiny and do eventually get caught are hanged for it, and they just never catch Christian. But the real story is actually kind of incredible. That like they basically set Bligh and his other like loyal sailors with him adrift in a lifeboat, and they survive for like a month at sea, and survive and get back to England, and then he spends the rest of his life trying to hunt down Mr. Christian.
Yes. And that was kind of the part, yeah, as I was kind of going through
Mm-hmm.
the piece, that's the next part that happens, right? So that
Yeah.
Christian and Byam, who is another one of the, crew members who is agreed originally with the mutiny, but doesn't necessarily, well, allowed the mutiny, but didn't necessarily agree with it, and then
Mm-hmm.
didn't like that they were just like hiding out in Tahiti, and was willing to just go back and face whatever came to him, right? Like he has, and so he and some other crew members decide to remain in Tahiti until a ship comes to get them back to England. And that's when Christian takes all of his remaining crew, the Tahitians that want to hang out with him, and they go searching for a new island. Um, when Byam does get picked up, turns out this is what you were talking about. It's Bligh is the captain, and he's literally trying to hunt these guys down,
Mm-hmm.
particularly Christian. But he does take that out on Byam and imprisons him and takes him back. And, Byam gets court martialed, found guilty of mutiny. Um, he then, in that trial, does speak of Bligh's dehumanizing conduct,
Mm-hmm.
and he does get pardoned. But he also has influential friends, and there's this whole other like political layer to it.
Yeah, yeah,
And
because
then
that
yeah,
character is basically of noble birth, who is just kind of on the ship to like, well, you have to kind of put in your time so that you can appropriately be considered a war hero later. But he was really just supposed to like he was always like he was one of the officers, so he's a little more privileged, and yeah, so
yeah,
that's why he gets pardoned and the other sailors get hanged.
right. And then Christian and the others find a island they believe will provide what they need, and the bounty crashes on the way in, and they burn her so that they will
Mm-hmm.
remain there. It's kind of the closing of the movie.
Yeah.
Um, so I touched on a little bit about what I really do like about this movie,
Mm-hmm.
and I like about the story. But like you said, it's a true story. But I think the movie does a very good job, particularly for 1935, of the nuance of, yes, because like I said, like I was saying in the beginning, when you open, it seems very clear that like
Mm-hmm.
Bly is our bad guy,
Mm-hmm.
Christian is our good guy. He's the charismatic, like guy with the more, like you said, the moral high ground. The other guy's,
Mm-hmm.
not very pleasant, very treats everybody poorly. But that's not how, like, the story doesn't leave it that, like I even joked before, black and white, right? Like there is very much a nuance, and the fact in the end is that after all this, yes, Bly did get and his crew did get cut loose, but they didn't get in trouble, right?
Mm-hmm.
Bly at the end is back where he started.
Well, yes and no. Like he, there's definitely a little bit of like after the trial, like all of the people actually presiding over the fleet and everything are basically telling him it's like, listen, legally you're right, and so we do have to punish these men, but we also understand why they did it because you're a dick and nobody likes you.
Yes, but he doesn't
Have
get
fun
in
in your command.
trouble, right? Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, and then you have, like I said, that you have divisions within the mutiny,
Mm-hmm.
right? Of the
Yeah.
guys who want to just be hiding out in the islands for the rest of their
Mm-hmm.
lives, and the guys who
Well,
are like, well, that guy was a jerk, and we didn't want him leading, but we also don't want to just hide in Tahiti forever. We do
right.
want to go back to our lives.
Because part of the cost of participating in the mutiny is that you can never return to England. If you
Right.
do, you will be hanged. So like,
Yes.
so it wasn't a like this is not a trivial decision. Even to save their lives, it's like, well, were you really like were they really going to die or just be uncomfortable, whereas now they can never go home? Some of them had families and stuff. And there were some people, like there wasn't enough room on that boat for all of the people who would have wanted to go with the captain to stay loyal. So some of the people were forced into being on the mutiny side that didn't even want to be.
Right.
But yeah, so there's a lot of good stuff in it. One little trivia bit that I wanted to touch on was just that I feel like my primary touchstone for this movie before finally watching it was that Bugs Bunny would sometimes do a Charles Lawton as Captain Bligh impression. Mr.
That's true.
Christian. Um, it's like it's a good cast, it's a good play, but just like in the way that a lot of the old Looney Tunes would make fun of like Hollywood at the time, this was one of the touchstones that I feel like got thrown into the mix
That is
in
true.
more
Yeah.
than one cartoon.
That is true. Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, but it's fun and like it's also like it's interesting to again just remember that even back in 1935, they could still make a movie on an actual sailing vessel. It's like
Mm.
probably some parts of it were sets, but there's definitely lots of it still done on what is clearly, obviously, without special effects, an actual sailing vessel on the actual ocean.
Yep.
Yep. And the last thing that I'll maybe leave this movie on is that it made me immediately want to go rewatch Master and Commander.
Mm. I can see that.
Yeah. Oh, I guess maybe just tied to that too is like since we touched on it being a true story based on a true story, it's worth noting that this incident was actually part of the inspiration for the Royal Navy to revise some of their codes of conduct and everything as far as like what captains are expected to do in terms of taking care of their crew and that sort of thing. Not that it was entirely, you know, uh, made perfectly egalitarian or fair or anything, because of course in Master and Commander there's definitely dialogue about like some of the men didn't actually even want to be sailors. They were pressed into service, and now they're away from home and having to serve all this danger, and they didn't really want to. And you have to that guy bumped your shoulder and didn't salute, so we're gonna whip him, that sort of thing. And that is set after these revisions to make the code more slightly more friendly. But in any case, so do we want to move on to Touch of Evil?
Sure.
So Touch of Evil is directed by Orson Welles. He is also cast in it as the sort of corrupt asterisk law enforcement official in a U.S. Mexico border town. And the other lead is Charlton Heston playing a Mexican lawyer, which is, it's like, well, it was made in what, 1950? So, but the plot features a complicated case where a bomb is planted on a car in Mexico that then crosses over the border before it blows up, if I'm remembering this sequence right. And so that just makes it a complicated jurisdictional case. And so the process of trying to solve that crime, Charlton Heston's lawyer character ends up involved with like he's not even really there's a little bit of a Clerks I'm not even supposed to be here today situation, because he's actually supposed to be leaving town to get married, but he is concerned that Orson Welles' character is going to frame someone for this crime.
Hmm.
But there's some great stuff in here. I think the opening sequence is I can't remember if it's actually completely one long take. I don't think it is, but it plays like one long take of showing this bomb being placed in the car, and then having this long shot where we kind of come and go, and the car, we're following these characters for a while and those characters for a while, but the car is kind of like, it's not always on screen, but sometimes we'll pan away from it, but then it'll come back into the screen. And it's like the Alfred Hitchcock saying about surprise versus suspense, right? We know there's a bomb, but when will it go off? Is it going to go off when all of these nice people are standing around it? Is it going to go off when, it's near a building? We don't know, and it's just this. It's a fun sequence there. Um,
Yep.
I remember too when I first saw this movie in my intro to film studies class way back as a freshman in college, and one of the things that I remember being struck by and feeling scary at the time is that later, when they have kidnapped they actually did get married, right? So his Charlton Heston's wife, they've kidnapped her, and they're basically trying to like use her for leverage against them. And part of what they do is they inject her with heroin to make it seem like she was maybe a junkie all along, but also to just keep her, um, you know, keep her docile. And I thought that was a kind of a scary thing to
Yeah.
do. The main thing that I like about this movie, though, and this is a spoiler of this elaborate this movie from decades and decades ago, but one of the things that I think is fun in terms of, as we were just saying, like the black and white film, but not black and white morality, is we find out by the end that although it's true that Orson Welles' character was trying to plant evidence, he was actually right about who did it. So essentially, you could argue that he was violating proper criminal procedure and planting evidence, but it was attempted in the service of trying to define, make sure you got a conviction of the guy that did actually turn out to do it. But you could also just as easily flip that to say, well, okay, you happened to be right, but you couldn't have known for certain. And so you were just deciding to frame someone who seemed like a convenient culprit without knowing really if it was them or not. And if it turned out that your attempt to frame them had been successful, and then it turned out to be someone else, you wouldn't have lost any sleep over it. So it's like that, the balance there. So the idea that having these two leads be on opposite sides, both legally and morally, but sort of flipped, right? Like Charlton Heston is right that you shouldn't plant evidence or try to frame people, but he's also actually wrong in the sense that he's defending this guy who did actually plant a bomb.
Right.
So it's I think that there's just, like, I don't know that this movie is necessarily trying to say something grand about all of humanity, or be this moving thing, so much as it's just kind of a messy little, dusty noir. But I think it's great as far as that goes.
Yeah. I enjoyed it. And I think the ending is interesting, when they,
Mm-hmm.
again, talking about the part where they shoot her up with the heroin, and then they kill the other guy, but he accidentally like leaves his cane there. And so he gets busted, and so they start looking into him, and it turns out he plants evidence all the time.
Yeah.
But then when they're trying to get this confession out of him, he's, savvy enough to figure out that that's what's happening,
Mm-hmm.
and ends up, he kills that guy, right? Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. I'm not remembering all the ins and outs, but yeah, but
Yeah, so he
certainly.
shoots the guy that's with Vargas, and
Mm-hmm.
then Vargas shoots him,
Right.
and
We
that's when
get
it all, and that's
get
when we
the
find
fun
out
climax on that
that
bridge
that's
and
when we
falling
find
off
out
the
that he
bridge.
was actually right about who.
Mm-hmm.
That's when the other dude confesses that he was the original bomber. So
Yeah.
it's like this sort of like bang, 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 like all this stuff kind of happens. Like it's just kind of a fun
Mm-hmm.
way that it kind of wraps up in
Mm-hmm.
this kind of high stakes scenario. So I don't
Well,
know. It
and
was
what
fun.
this summary kind of leaves out too is that there are lots more sequences, kind of like that opening one, where it's not necessarily that there's a lot of plot happening as much as we just find ourselves in these tense situations. Like when Vargas's wife is first going over to basically, she is like completely unaware of how serious the situation actually is because they've only just started to figure out what's happening. So she's like getting threatened by basically the equivalent of mob goons, and trying to very delicately work her way out of a situation that was much more dangerous than she realized going
Yeah.
in, and just watching her try to do that without kind of, it's kind of like, if I actually, it's a little bit like facing down a predator, where like if I just run, they're just going to get me. But if I can maybe keep pretending that there's nothing actually wrong, maybe I can actually talk my way out of this. But yeah, there's some great stuff in there. But so let's, you know, those are, I think, both movies that I would recommend people watch if you're interested in classic films. Um, but along the lines of what we were saying up top, they are classic films, and they're not necessarily uh, movies that are, we have any particular reason to seek out today, as opposed to any of the many other great classic films. But we do also have this new list of the top 100 movies of the 21st century. And so sometimes when there's a recency to films, you start to say, well, sure, it seems great, but has it stood the test of time? And then this list, of course, is designed to be all of those things to everybody, because it includes a whole bunch that sort of, you know, because the 21st century is 25 years now. So some of these do not, they don't especially feel like brand new movies.
Correct.
But then they've also picked movies from like this year. So there's just a lot in there. But I think it's a great list that we can kind of talk through, and see if we want to, you know, talk more about it in a future time too. So,
Yes,
do you have the list
I do.
at the ready?
I do.
Okay. So it looks like we have our spreadsheet that we use for this purpose, and it looks like, having gone through all of them, I have seen 82 of the 100 already. Although I have one of those highlighted because, um, In the Mood for Love, which is a Wong Kar Wai movie, I have watched it, but it was very late at night, and I feel like I really don't remember it. So I'm sure it is one of those things where if I put it on every 10 minutes or so, I would be saying, oh, right, okay, I remember this now. But right now, if you ask me to tell you what happens in it, I couldn't.
And my version of it, I did very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I'm looking at it just in text,
Yeah.
right? So it's not like I have a poster or any
Oh,
context.
do you
So
want
there may be,
the list link?
no, I can do it in it later.
Okay.
I'm just saying that
All
in
right.
my first pass through, there may be movies
Mm-hmm.
I have seen, I just don't recognize by their title in black and white text.
Sure.
So, but I do have the link where I can go through in more detail later. But
Yeah. I just posted the link into a cell at the top of the our
oh,
little
perfect. So that
spreadsheet
makes it
list,
easier.
so you
Yeah.
can pull it up. Just because it does that, the list on the IMDb website does have the posters and the little log line, and some detail
Right. Which on
where.
some of these that where it's like maybe something I watched one time
Mm-hmm.
and it didn't necessarily like sink in as like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, that's a really great movie. There's
Mm-hmm.
probably more that I've seen. And there's some that I like, I feel like I should have seen, but I'm not positive
Yeah.
that I did until I go back. Like Zodiac. I feel like I've seen that. I feel like I should have seen that. It's the kind of movie I
Didn't we
would
watch
watch.
that for our list? Didn't, because it's a Fincher. Didn't we
We might have
watch?
done that. But it's one of those ones that just for whatever reason doesn't resonate as like, oh yeah, that's a movie I've seen. So I think you're right. We did watch that for our list.
I'm trying to find where, because that was when we did that, when we did like a whole episode on some of. Oh yeah, so we did Fight Club, Panic Room, and Zodiac all in.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
So
see that I knew there'd be some like that that I would
yeah,
just find that
you've
just
seen that
for
one.
whatever reason, like
Sure.
flying through it, I'm like, I'm not positive
Yeah.
I've seen that, but I think I
Hmm.
have. Yeah. Did I highlight that green or did you?
I didn't highlight anything.
I did then.
There's, I have one that's highlighted yellow up above, but I don't have any others highlighted right now. But so in any case, for people who are not looking at the list right now, I'll just go ahead and read the top 10 just for sort of immediate discussion. Uh, Starting with number one. Uh, I just realized that because I have a row at the top, it means that the row number means that it's one off of what place on the list it is. But anyway, starting at number one, Parasite, Mulholland Drive, There Will Be Blood, In the Mood for Love, Moonlight, No Country for Old Men, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, Get Out, Spirited Away, and The Social Network. And so we've got definitely a lot of represented major directors already right there. So Bong Joon Ho won Best Picture with Parasite not too long ago. We've got David Lynch for Mulholland Drive there. Paul Thomas Anderson for There Will Be Blood. In the Mood for Love, Wong Kar Wai. Moonlight, I can't remember the director's name. I'm suddenly blanking on that, but that one was Barry Jenkins did that one. No Country for Old Men was Cohen's. Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, Michel Gondry, Jordan Peele for Get Out, Hayao Miyazaki for Spirited Away, and then of course David Fincher for Social Network. So we've just got a lot of big names right off the bat. What do you think about Parasite as number one?
I I haven't decided yet, and obviously you sent me this list
Mm-hmm.
a couple weeks ago, and I've sort of reflected on that. At first, I was like, "Wow, number one for best movie of the 21st century, huh?" It it's pretty good. I
Mm-hmm.
I I'm okay with it. I don't know that I would put it, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
okay with it.
Yeah. That's one of the things about these lists always. It's like us starting with the our original AFI top 100 list and the ranking of and I think one of the things with this list is it's not nobody expects that we would necessarily rank everything exactly the same. I look at this list almost more like a better question is, do I broadly agree with the movies that are in the top 100 as opposed to the specific placement of any individual movie?
Yeah, and when I do that, I'm pretty comfortable with this list in general.
Yeah, same. I mean, there's a handful obviously that I haven't seen, but the ones that I have, I think there might be a few places where I would quibble, especially when you have a couple of places like, for example, a little further down, you have Wes Anderson represented with both the Royal Tenenbaums and Grand Budapest Hotel right next to each other on the list. And personally, although I do like Royal Tenenbaums, I like Grand Budapest Hotel quite a bit more than Royal Tenenbaums personally. And so just when I see them right next to each other, but Grand Budapest Hotel second of the two, I'm like, no, that doesn't seem right to me.
Yeah,
uh,
and
but
just
Parasite is
and
pretty
the
good.
way that like this stacks up, similar to the way that the AFI at 100 is. So while it is a New York Times list,
Mm-hmm.
they curated it. They did not decide it. So
Mm-hmm.
they did ballots to 500 directors, writers, whatever. Basically, so they curated who they took as the 500 people who would vote,
Mm-hmm.
but they did not decide that Parasite. It's not like it was the New York Times editors picked this, right? This is based on scoring
Right.
of how many ballot submissions all of these movies got. And when to your point about like the AFI one, when you think about it that way, it makes sense, right? That everybody has Parasite and everybody has Parasite high.
Yeah.
When you get into the next ones, like Mulholland Drive, There Will Be Blood, like some of those movies, like those are probably going to be on most of their ballots, but you can see people who don't put Mulholland Drive as high because it is odd, and There Will Be Blood is has just a different kind of feel to it, right? Like where you could see somebody who could say, "Hey, that's a good movie," but I'm putting that like 90th to 100, right? Like as
Hmm.
opposed, whereas Parasite's always going to be in that top 20, right? For
Yeah.
pretty much everybody.
It's funny how sometimes a movie that wins Best Picture can sometimes end up like falling out of prestige for a little bit. Like the only thing people remember about it is that it won Best Picture. Um, and I think even at the, I don't want to even give it the dignity of saying it was a controversial pick because I think the people who were opposed to it were disingenuous and bad faith actors in the in the question. But the idea, though, it was a little bit of a surprise to have a foreign language film with subtitles win Best Picture. I mean, that's just not common, right? And but it is great. I've only watched it twice. I saw it in the theater, and then I watched it once when it was released on home viewing. But I mean, I think that I wouldn't have necessarily put it at one as we were just discussing, but is it one of the most important movies of the 21st century so far? I certainly think so.
Hmm.
Hmm. And then, of course, Mulholland Drive. We've done as an episode here of this podcast is when we did a few David Lynch movies, and I really became a great big fan of David Lynch sort of in the last couple of years, and in some ways it felt a little bit strange because it happened. I became a big fan of his just in time for him to die. Which meant that someone who I would have said, "Oh, that's sad," it actually profoundly affected me because I had just become a big fan. But yeah, Mulholland Drive, I think, is it's hard to pick a favorite with his stuff because it's so eclectic. But Mulholland Drive is kind of just this towering work, even amongst his stuff. Uh,
Yes. I'm I mean, I know it's not a movie, and I know we probably talked about it a little when we did him, but
mhm.
I still like it's complicated, but like I still think Twin Peaks is just some of the greatest work and most
Mm.
important work. It's frustrating because just like with like but almost like any really really good groundbreaking TV series like that, it's just so hard to land the plane. I just lost your audio for some reason. Everything appears all right on my side. I'm sorry. Okay. Still don't hear you. I'm going to mute myself and play something else to make sure my sound.
Okay, do you hear me now? Hello? Do you hear me now? You should hear me now. You don't hear me now?
I don't hear you at all, and I just verified. I played some other things. My sound is
Oh,
working.
okay. No, hang on. So there's two things happening. Um, okay, you should hear me
There.
now. So,
Yep.
well, I probably sound different because I switched to the webcam microphone instead of my fancy one that has just decided not to work anymore for some reason. Like just out of nowhere, it was all set up and it just like, nope, sorry, not doing that anymore. Um, so I don't know what to do about that, but I'll have to look into it later. In any case, yeah. So what I was just getting at in terms of what I think about Twin Peaks is that Twin Peaks is this kind of incredible gestalt that includes a lot of stuff that isn't necessarily great 100% of the time, but also it's kind of still all of a piece. It's really not something that I think, like, I hear people talk about, like, oh, a skip list. And I'm like, I feel like if you skip any episode of Twin Peaks, you're doing yourself a disservice, even though not all of them are great or even good. But especially when you're in the back half of season two, where it wasn't even David Lynch still doing it at that point. But
Correct. And then the
but
fact that like it sort of spun out and it just like it never felt like it could draw itself to like any kind of conclusion, but like it just sort of still kept existing and it's just but it's I
well,
feel like it's okay.
I mean, I think that both with the end of the original first two seasons and then with the end of the return, it seems very deliberate and intentional on David Lynch's part to not to absolutely deny the audience a crowd pleasing ending.
Yes.
Like he there it was, even when there wasn't necessarily any intention to actually continue it, he was never going to let it end on everything is wrapped up and characters are smiling. There was no way he would let it end in that way.
No, that's a good point,
Mm-hmm.
is that it's not that he couldn't land the plane, like it's like he chose not to. And I mean land the plane in like what you're saying, like bring it all
Right.
down
Well, I
to
mean,
this smooth landing of
like
like
he
here's
doesn't
how it
even
all.
choose to crash the plane. What he chooses to
No.
do is have the plane in the process of crashing and then cut to black, and then that's it. You don't even know if do they pull up? Do they crash? But in any case, I could
Anyway, that's not what
definitely
we're.
talk
Yeah,
more about Twin Peaks, but perhaps let's,
another time. Yeah.
especially since it's not actually on the list. Um,
No, I just
but
we were
yes,
talking
I
about his
I
best
agree
work, and I
though.
just love
Yeah,
that it exists. Yeah.
yes, I agree. And in fact, in rewatching Twin Peaks: The Return, I liked it even more than the first time. But in any case, so yes, Mulholland Drive though also very good. And then There Will Be Blood, of course, we've done on the show. It's not my favorite Paul Thomas Anderson, but I'm not surprised that it would be the first of his movies on the list here. Jumping ahead, he's also got Phantom Thread and The Master on the list. I love The Phantom Thread, but The Master is one where, like, I am a huge fan of Paul Thomas Anderson. I feel like I love all of his movies except The Master. And even The Master, it's not like I hate it. It's just I sort of feel like it's trying to do something that I'm not getting, I'm not connecting with. I watch it and I feel like I understand intellectually what's happening, but there's some core of emotion there that I'm not grasping. And I know people whose movie opinions I trust say they love that one. It's their favorite of his, and I just don't get it. I've actually watched it three times trying to make that happen. But you know, maybe it needs four. I will say, for example, Inherent Vice, which we also talked about in our Paul Thomas Anderson episode, was a movie that I had to watch a second time before I really even felt like I understood what it was trying to do.
Yep.
But then, of course, there's One Battle After Another, which is this year, which I saw three times in the theater, even though I loved it the first time. So. But yeah, but then number four is the first one where I think where did I put our list here? That's the first one that you haven't seen, and that's the one that I had kind of highlighted as like technically I watched it, but I don't think I was watching it in a way that I was able to like fully absorb it, and I don't really remember it well. So I'm good. I marked it as seen on the spreadsheet, but highlighted it because I feel like it's one thing to sort of half remember. It's another thing to say, I remember that there was some point where that was on, and I supposedly was watching it, but I don't know. But Wong Kar Wai has made some really fun movies. For example, Chungking Express is lots of fun. Like that's the other main one that I know from him. But let's see, pull up his filmography, and I believe that he's got a new one. Um, he's got oh, I see. He's got a lot of TV and stuff coming on here too. So I was just trying to pull up like what's all the other stuff that he has done. Oh yeah, he's got a TV show that I think is out now called Blossoms Shanghai. That's like on the Criterion Channel or something that I've been meaning to check out. But yeah, so that's it is a movie though that like even I think even in the context of my first watching it, it was like I understood it to be a movie that people say, oh, it's one of my favorite movies of all time. And so it's like, well, you know, it didn't make an impression on me at the time, but that's likely my fault in the viewing conditions.
And I've never tried to watch it, so.
Mm-hmm. Uh, and then Moonlight was another more recent movie. Although I say that, I look at it now. It's 2016, so not actually as recent as in my head. But that was another Best Picture winner for that year. That was the year that was the La La Land confusion.
Yes.
In the Oscar ceremony, they announced the wrong movie in the Best Picture category.
Yeah, and
What?
I never watched it during our marathon that time, and I
Mm,
just never came around to watching it
mm,
again.
yeah. It's very good. I recommend it. But like one of the things that we may talk about too is have do we want to sort of plan a list based on the movies on this list that we haven't seen or the ones that we would want to rewatch? But you know, certainly that might be because I
That
saw
was,
it the one time in the theater, but I haven't rewatched it.
yeah, so that was going to be one of the things that I thought we should definitely get to on this is not just what is the list, how is the list,
Hmm.
what do we want to do with the list?
Right. Yeah. So I think then the so Daggerheart and Moonlight, or not Daggerheart. I'm sorry. I'm crossing over different screens that I'm looking at here. So In the Mood for Love and Moonlight are two that are may as well have not been seen by. Um, uh, okay, In the Mood for Love. I should rewatch it. You haven't seen it. Moonlight is another one you haven't seen. But after that, it for me at least, we go all the way back, all the way down to number 35 or 34 for a separation to get to another one that I haven't seen. Um, but
So, yeah, that was what I was going to say when we started talking about this is yes, I would like to see the ones that we haven't seen.
mm-hmm,
I don't want to do ourselves a disservice of not rewatching some of these awesome movies that
mm-hmm.
we just haven't found a way, they just haven't landed in any of our other categories, right?
Yeah. Well, and it's the other thing too is that I think in some ways, by virtue of them being more recent, it almost might make them less of a normal candidate for a rewatch because it feels
Yes.
like, well, wasn't that more recent? But sometimes it's good to have a revisit, even though there's a handful of these like Zone of Interest that I'm not sure I'm excited to put myself through again.
Well, and that could be again, it's our list. No, it's not
Mm-hmm.
our list. It's our watching experience,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So we could do it where like just like how instead of doing it the way we did the original list, right, which is just work through the list,
Mm-hmm.
which took us 10 years, right? Or
Something
whatever.
like that, yeah.
Yeah. We can use this one as more of like just our fun, where we each get to pick whatever we're going to watch that time, one or
Mm-hmm.
two or four movies. And we pick one that we haven't seen and one that we have
Okay.
that we want that we choose to rewatch.
Yeah.
And then that way, and we don't have to go in any order. We could go in order, like
Mm-hmm.
we could work our way top to bottom, we could work our way bottom to top, like, or we could just be this is the one I feel like rewatching,
Mm-hmm.
and this is the one I haven't seen that I feel like watching. And then
Yeah.
you could do the same, and we would have four movies that would be interesting to go watch.
All right. Yeah, I think that seems like a good approach then. Do you
And what
wanna?
it does is, at least for the next, probably the next year, I mean, other than, well, obviously we'll have like the Oscar break here. So
Sure.
yeah, but we have a very low, not that this is very stressful to choose movies, but we have a very low stress way to pick movies.
Hmm.
It's like, hey, we've got all these good movies. All I have to do is pick one I haven't seen and one I have that I want to watch right now.
Mm-hmm.
And off we go.
All right. Cool. Do you want to go ahead and pick some for next time?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and I'll take In the Mood for Love, just because, like, let's get that off of your I've sort of seen it list.
Sure. Yeah.
But it's gonna be my choice as my I have not seen.
Okay.
Um, and then I'll probably come up with a criteria for how I choose what I want to rewatch eventually, but
There's always the option of rolling a random die too. I have some
ooh,
D100s.
do it.
You want it? Okay. I'll roll some
And this may
D100s.
turn into our thing.
Yeah.
We may just do this every time.
Okay. Let's see. So that would be number 49, which again, going by number 49 on the list as opposed to our spreadsheet, would be Before Sunset.
All right.
Which is the second of the trilogy, I believe.
Yep. Let's
Yeah.
do it. I'll do that.
Nice. Okay. So, In the Mood for Love and Before Sunset.
And I'm going to.
I feel like rewatching Before Sunset without rewatching Before Sunrise feels weird too. So, but I suppose that's you can that's optional.
Yeah, that is optional. There's always extra credit in these.
You know, I never saw the third one.
Before, I forget what it's called.
Yeah, I don't remember either.
I feel like that's one of those ones that I watched in the same way you watched In the Mood for Love, where like
Yeah.
I had it on one night and I don't.
Because I really like those first two. So I don't know. I just never got around to it. Okay, so I think then for the movie that I have not seen, I'm gonna pick After Sun, which is a relatively recent one. I think it might have even just been 2023. I did check it out. Oh, 2022. I did check it out. There are actually no 2024 or 2025 movies on this list, but there are 3 2023 movies. But After Sun is number 78 on the list, directed by Charlotte Wells, and it stars Paul Mescal in it, who is was in a movie I didn't care for as much recently, and then a movie that I liked quite a bit. So we'll see how he fares in this one. Just for the record, Gladiator 2, I didn't think he was necessarily all that great in, but I did see Hamnet, which I think he's wonderful in. So,
Got it.
So that's the movie that I haven't seen, and then for just a rewatch. See, there's a lot of these that I've.
You could roll the die too.
Oh yeah. So if this is for a rewatch, do I have to re-roll if it's something I haven't seen?
So what I was gonna do, had it been something I hadn't seen, was pick the next movie either above or below. So I'd have two choices, right?
Okay, yeah, gotcha. All right, so whenever you roll a lot of dice, this sort of thing happens periodically, but seems crazy. I did just roll 49 again. Which is the movie. That's what you
Right.
rolled for before sunset. So I'm
So
gonna
you're
re-roll,
so
or
well, I
should
was
I
going to
go
say,
based on what's close to that one then?
yeah, so in
Okay.
my way of doing it, you would take either Almost Famous or Up, whichever you prefer of those two.
Lives of Others was, I think.
You haven't seen that though.
Oh, you're right. You're right. Well, Up is closer than Almost Famous. I do love Almost Famous, but I have not watched Up in a long time.
See,
So,
so this
yeah.
plan works,
All
right? Like
right.
we can maneuver within this plan. So
Okay. So, heck of a theme that we've set up for ourselves in that episode. In the Mood for Love, Before Sunset, After Sun, Up.
and we can refine it as we
Oh,
go,
of
but
course.
like
No, I
yeah.
think yeah. This is fine. There's no. It doesn't have to be a theme. The theme is experimenting with a new way of choosing movies from this list. That's the theme.
Yes. And
But yeah.
I feel like I did us both a favor and went and highlighted all the ones that we did so that we don't
Okay.
have to.
Aha. Yes.
Yeah.
I think that we did end up with a theme of, in some respects, though, because I think all of these movies are sort of, at least have elements where it's complicated love stories. Uh, because that's certainly true for In the Mood for Love and for Before Sunset. Up starts with that, even if it's kind of the rest of the movie is sort of about getting past those
Yeah.
feelings.
Yeah,
And
but it
then
still works. Yeah.
After Sun, I don't know as well, but the little log line for it is Sophie reflects on the shared joy and private melancholy of a holiday she took with her father 20 years earlier. So, in any case, we'll find out. Yeah,
Yeah.
so
So
I'm excited to watch some of these movies, either again or for the first time. So,
awesome.
so I guess we can maybe leave it there for now, and we'll be back. And in the meantime, watch good movies.
Yeah. Watch good movies.